welcome to another edition of Shed Talk, my weekly video magazine type series looking at all things Exhibition Budgerigar, including the breeding, keeping and showing, along with, particularly in this episode, a few of my other birds. So we're going to have a look at the finches. Well, as well as looking at the finches, we're going to have a quick look at what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks and my plans for the next couple of weeks in the shed. Before we do that though, as always, a big thank you to all those who have either commented on the video or liked the video, and in particular those of you who do subscribe to the channel. All the subscriptions obviously do help the channel. If you haven't yet subscribed and you enjoy the videos, then don't forget to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and as always, if you want early notifications to any of the videos, then do hit the bell icon. So what we're going to do then is we'll start off by looking at how we're getting on with those finches. So I suppose the main bit of work that's been going on over the last week or two has been to do with the finches. I know I've had a number of comments recently from viewers about wanting to look at the finches and the zebras, and I know people have said they've heard them in the background and wanted to take a look at them. And I've got back to people and said that I was thinking about moving the finches, so once I'd done that I would do an update on that. So that's where we are so far. So I have moved the finch flight, and the finch flight is mainly just a mixed flight of various finches. It was really, from my point of view, initially started just as a bit of extra interest on top of the breeding of the Exhibition Budgerigar, so it just gave me something a little bit new. As you probably know, I'm a member of Oxford 1910 Cage Bird Society. You get lots of different types of birds there and they always sort of spark an interest, so I thought I would try and keep a few finches. And so why then did I think about moving them? Well, you may remember a few months ago, or I think it probably is over, probably about 2 months ago, I made a decision to move all of the budgerigars into the main shed. So from this shed into the main shed. There were a number of reasons for that. The first one of those was I wanted to increase the noise of the budgerigars in the place where they were breeding. I know a lot of people say that it's that added noise that encourages the birds to breed, so when all the cockbirds are competing, and that moving all of the birds into the main shed has actually increased that noise quite substantially. The second reason really is actually to do with the finches themselves. So when I designed the finch flight, the original finch flight, I only had in mind that I was going to be keeping 2 or 3 finches in there, or just a couple of finches in there, but as I've increased the number of birds in that particular flight, it's become increasingly more difficult to keep the flight clean and to give it a good clean out, really because the finches are much more flighty than the budgerigars, and there was this real fear that they were going to come flying back out through the door. And in the big shed, the indoor shed, it was much more difficult to catch them and put them back in. In this flight, because of the extra space and the way it's designed, I found that less of a problem. Indeed, I've going in and out of this one is no problem at all. They tend to be a bit more steadier because of the way this particular flight is designed. So really, by moving the finches, I've managed to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you pardon the pun. So I've created more room in the main shed for the budgerigars. The finch flight will get a thorough clean and I will move, that will become the main flight for the budgerigars. The design problems are less of a problem for the budgers because they're less flighty, and I've also managed to create a better environment and a cleaner environment now for the finches. So that's what I've done, and as you can see behind me, the finches are now in here, so let's take a look at those. So like I say, it's a bit of a mixed flight. Mostly it is the zebra finches. When I had them in the other flight, they did breed in there, so that's why I've got mostly zebra finches. I'm not sure, I don't really understand the zebra finch mutations, but my guess is, just looking at them and having a look at a few pictures, my guess is I've got mainly normals and pieds. But do those of you that keep zebras let me know what these are and what mutations they might be. So, but like I say, I'm guessing it's mainly zebras and pies. I was gifted a pair of Bengalese, and those are still in this flight, so you can probably see the Bengalese in there. And I did have a number of spice finches in the flight. I'm down to only one left, so I probably need to get a couple more just to keep that particular bird a bit more company. So I'm down to just one. The others have just died of old age, in all honesty. And finally, you'll notice in there that there is a pair of gold-breasted waxbills. Now I've had these, you know, got to be 5 years, if not longer, 5 or 6 years. They were what I originally got for the Finch flight, and they are just like an old married couple. They, you know, most of the time they'll be sat together on the perch, huddled up. They hardly move unless, apart from to go and get food and drink. But they're nearly always together. They're not at the moment, I think, because they're still getting used to this flight, but they are just like an old married couple. So that's what I've got in the flight. What about my thoughts for the future in here? Well, I wouldn't mind. Now I've got a bit more room and a bit more space for them, and like I say, easier to keep this particular part of the shed clean. What I wouldn't mind doing is getting a few more finches. I don't know what I would get. I might, you know, look at seeing if I can pick up perhaps a couple of pairs of fifes or something, just to add a bit of that more pleasant canary type singing sound in the in here. And the other thing I might look at is a few Goldings, as well as obviously increasing the spice finches and perhaps the Bengalese. So that's my thoughts. I don't know, it all depends on what comes up in and the sort of prices available. So there you go, a big piece of work was getting these moved into here. The second bit of work now is getting that Finch flight cleaned out, thoroughly cleaned out, ready to move the budgerigars in. So what about the rest of the shed then, apart from the finches? What about the budgerigars? I've still got just 5 pairs in the breeding cages, and we will talk a little bit more about how those pairs are doing and my pairing up of the next 5 pairs in a future video. But for the rest of this video we'll just focus on what my plans are for the next or the coming 2 weeks or so. Well, one of the reasons why I'm holding back on pairing up is I've got a show coming up, so I will have to look at getting those birds out and preparing for the show. I think it looks like I'm going to have about 4 or 5 birds that are going to be ready for the show. There were a couple of young grey greens that I was hoping to get out. Unfortunately, they're right at the end of their molt, and one of them is still missing 2 tail feathers, and the other one's tail feathers are just coming back down. I think that second one, which is the lesser of the 2 actually, from when I was looking at them, will just about be ready for the show, so I will prepare that. But the other one, the better of the 2, is not going to be ready for the show. But I do have a couple of young birds that we can get out, and a few of the adult birds that we can get out for that one final show before I pop those into the breeding cages. So that was the first of the main focuses for the coming weeks, so preparing those for the show. I did do a video on how I prepare my birds for shows, and I will put a link across the top of the screen now, so if you want to go back and have a look at that, then please do. So that was, like I say, that was the very first of the priorities for the coming weeks. But a more immediate issue is how I prepare for fireworks night. So over here in the UK, we have an annual celebration we call bonfire night or firework night, and everybody lets off fireworks, and that continues probably for about, I don't know, almost a week it feels like now. In fact, some of them have already gone off, and I clearly need to prepare the shed for that, because obviously the birds will get very, very nervous with the loud bangs and the flashes that are going on. I actually did miss, I think it was the Festival of Lights celebration, and I didn't realise that was coming up, so I missed that. And there were a few fireworks that went off prior to me changing my routine in the shed. So what do I do then? How do I prepare the shed for that? I think, like most people, the first thing I do is extend the lights in the various sheds. So the lights will be on probably for about another hour longer than they would normally be. This will take us through to sort of 11, half 11, 12 o'clock time. And hopefully with the lights on, the flashes outside of the shed won't be quite so obvious, particularly for the finches that have just been moved outside. In here, with there being less natural light, it's less of a problem, but the loud bangs of course are a problem. So how do I deal with the loud bangs? Well, you will know, most of you will know, that I do have a radio on in the shed. That will be left on longer as well, so that will continue whilst the lights are on, so that there will be a constant noise in here. And actually I have the radio, always have the radio tuned to classic FM, just because it's one of the few channels that that I can get in the shed that doesn't keep fading in and out, so it's always tuned to classic FM. And fortunately classic FM, very thankful to them, what they do is they have a couple of nights which are designed to, the music they play is designed to soothe pets, so it's quite relaxing, and you know, none of the upbeat moving, some quite relaxing classical music. And I'm hoping that leaving that on and that soothing music will help settle the birds as well, so they'll have some constant noise, and which should distract them a little bit from the bangs outside. But it's also music that specifically, you know, that classic FM put on specifically in order to keep pets relaxed, and I'm hoping that will have the same influence on the birds. So plenty to be getting on with over the next couple of weeks. Do let me know how you deal with the issue around fireworks and those celebrations that I know happen across the whole of the world, not just here in the UK but everywhere. So let me know your thoughts on how you manage to cope with that, whether it's very similar. I suspect most people follow a reasonably similar method of dealing with those problems. And touch wood, hopefully this weekend will go reasonably well and we won't have any problems with the birds due to the fireworks. And of course, let me have your thoughts on the finches. Let me know what you think about what I ought to be getting. What I would say though, before I get all of the bombarded with all of those comments about the that I got it wrong in the finch flight. Okay, so there is actually 2 spice finch in there and 1 Bengalese, so it's the additional Bengalese I might need to get. So as I was just looking back at them, I realised that I'd got them around the wrong way. So 2 spice finch left in there and 1 Bengalese before I get bombarded with comments about it. But let me know your thoughts, particularly around whether I ought to get a few 5 canaries to go in there and mix in amongst them and that sort of thing. Don't know. Might distract a little bit too much from the budgerigars, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's all we've got time for in this video. As always, if you enjoy the video, hit the like button and do of course comment. Don't forget, if you've got any pictures of your birds that you would like shown on the channel, then do message me with those pictures. They are always welcome. So until the next one then, please do stay safe and enjoy your birds.